Hello, this is Tony here. This is specifically for all you people on the UK Crohn's and Colitis site on Facebook. I absolutely love you all. It's fantastic seeing the things that you post on the site. And just to give you a quick update on my own colitis. Well, when it comes to ulcerative colitis, I am a bit of a veteran. In fact, my wonderful specialist, a guy at James Paget Hospital in Great Yarmouth, you can find him under the name Dr. Salim. Yep. And Dr. Salim also, you will find, if you so wish to look for him, has his own website called Perfect Poop. What a name for a website. What a doctor. This guy knows my colon intimately. In fact, he knows it more intimately than I know it. And I've seen an awful lot of film of it on a monitor while that tube was doing what all good tubes do. Well, as you lot may know from what I've posted in the past, yep, I had a bit of a flare-up, began around about May, June last year, particularly with various mental and emotional upsets going on, particularly one at a Methodist church I went to in Galston. But that's another story. That's the psychological side of it. The physiological side was dear old stress. Wow, didn't that do wonders? Yep, it did wonders. I remember telling the IBD nurse that with what was coming out of my anal sphincter, because I do love the word sphincter, isn't it? Medical sphincter. I could put fires out. Well, fortunately, over the time of taking the Mesovan, the fire putting out ability has decreased. Yep. I can probably only put out a couple of matchsticks in a grate rather than an immense conflagration. Yep. But, of course, being on the old Mesovan, as you lot probably know, there is the old side effect of a bit of nausea, but I have not been feeling nauseous. Although I am told by some people, not necessarily all women, that if you do suffer from nausea on that, you could try some anti-sickness stuff that pregnant women use. One, I believe, is called Prego Pops. They are available, but if you're a man and you go in and you ask for Prego Pops, well, just see what kind of a look you get from the person behind the pharmacy counter. But anyway, that's one of the side effects that you all know about. And the other one, as we all know, and it's a most inconvenient side effect, is the side effect of the drug actually is diarrhea. I mean, you gotta laugh at that. Come on, you gotta laugh at a drug designed to treat, well, not diarrhea, but possibly inflammation of the bowel. Yeah, its side effect is more diarrhea. So literally, how do you know if it's the inflammation from the colitis acting up, or it's just a side effect of the drug, or more fun, as me and my consultant, the great Mr. Dr. Salim said, how do you know it's not just a tummy upset? I don't know. Well, here's the upshot, here's the plan. A mere veteran of 36 years with ulcerative colitis like me gets a bit of a different scoping, shall we say, at some stage. Now, the old colon had been on the scope so many times, they must have got so much footage of it at James Paget, they must be bored of watching footage of my colon. They must be absolutely bored. They must sit there, medical students probably look at it, and they're absolutely bored to tears. They just keep looking at the same colon, and it changes, and they look again, and they think, can't you show me something else? Maybe you could put on something a bit more exciting than this bloke's colon. Yep. Well, next, as my old wife used to say, next on the agenda is a more detailed form of endoscopy, colonoscopy. they're going to dye my colon. Not dye as in dye, but dye as in D-Y-E. I don't know what colour the dye is, but the idea is they put a contrast dye in. Now, whether that goes into my bloodstream or straight up my bottom, I don't know. But they put a contrast dye in, and what that apparently does is when Dr. Salim examines it again, it would highlight any cancerous, precancerous cells that they may come across, because apparently as you've had the disease longer, like us mere 67-year-olds like me, yeah, it gets a bit harder for them to see by conventional endoscopic examination. Yep. So what happens then, apparently? Well, Dr. Salim, I love the guy because he's to the point, he's honest, and he talks to me like a real person. Yep. Well, then basically we just take out your bowel. Yeah. Well, I think that was a bit extreme. I don't think it means he's going to take the whole flaming lot out. Well, I want some bowel left, for crying out loud. It's been attached to me for 67 years. Yeah, since I was in nappies, literally. So I want to be left with a bit of bowel. Yeah, and then you get a stoma. Now, the reason for that is perfectly straightforward, as anybody with half a brain can understand that. If he's found precancerous or cancerous cells, well, if we whip out as much of your bowel as possible, then you haven't got any more bowel to get cancer in. And when you get cancer in that, well, you can't get cancer in that because there's none of it left to get cancer in, and that can't, of course, metastasize and spread to other cancers within your body. So anyone who is going through this stuff with Crohn's, colitis, but I'm a specialist in ulcerative colitis. I've had it for so long, I reckon know more about it than the medics. Yep, do some research, but be careful what you read, okay? There's a load of stuff out there, and anyone, and I do mean anyone, all right? This is a request to all you folks on here. I hope you don't mind me posting a video. If I can't, I'm sure they will have just not put it up, okay? But this is a request from you lot, right? Now, I like to think ahead. My father was ex-British Army. Yep, he used to say, expect the best, prepare for the worst. Yeah, well, you do that when you're fighting the Japanese or whatever in the Far East and Burma and whatever during the war. Of course you expect the best, but you prepare for the worst. Got to be aware in case they sneak up on you with a sneak attack or something like that and catch you literally with your trousers down, perhaps taking a poo. Yeah. So what I'm asking you lot is, if any of you have got any info at all that you would like to pass on about stomas, stoma care, what it's like when you have one, how you deal with it. I know there's a few people on the site that do post fantastic videos on this, absolutely fantastic. I'm totally impressed by them. In fact, it was so impressive that made me come on and post a video on here, because that guy is brilliant, okay? I just want a bit of advanced information. That's all I'm looking for, mate. Personal experiences, right? So, remember, if you don't know for certain that it is in fact going to be dry, assume it's not a fart and clench tightly. Thank you. Tenner for men. Bye.